Hi guys, this is Markus, your MTT coach of the Academy of Poker, and today we have another hand review, another interesting hand that came across one of my last sessions. Well, I just want to find out with you guys if the line I took was correct, because I wasn't sure what I should do on the flop most of the times and on the turn, and therefore I thought, why not share it with you guys? Every one of you will have those will have those kind of situations as well, so, those kind of spots. So yeah, why not share it with you so you will know about it as well, and you will also see how to review hands, how to analyze the things, and how to learn to know which spots are the best. Again, we're using the Hold'em Manager 3 for that, as well as our simple post-flop program that helps with all those different things here, how just play GTO, like the game theoretical optimum, how to play the best way possible, and therefore we will now go through this. So today's position is small blind versus UTG defending. You see we have 10-9 of clubs here in the small blind, pretty deep still. Even though the big blind called on the pre-flop, we will just calculate from the flop because he just folds the flop bet. However, so we effectively play for my 62.5 big blinds here, and we have this kind of flop. Pretty easy decision here to just check. We have that as a default as well, of course, and you will maybe see one of the videos upcoming from me where I talk about donk bets, when they might make sense sometimes. In general, it's just not a good thing. And as said, as default, we will always check to the aggressor. Now, as said, aggressor bets 3 big blinds, so a little bit more than a third of the pot. And now it's our turn. Let's see what GTO, what simple post-flop tells us to do. As we see the check from us. Big blind, as said, we just ignore him. Also, just because it's a lot of data simple post-flop has to work through, so the fewer information he has, the better it is to work with it. And yeah, let's see. So we have 8 big blinds in the middle roughly, and as said, he continues for a little bit, for roughly a third. So we go for this, as also as seen. Funny enough, the player should check more than a third of his range. However, he decides to go for a little bit more than a third of the pot bet, which is pretty much this case here. And let's have a look what he would be betting with this. So you see the light green. We can also just change it just so that it's easier to see. As you see, there's not a really clear way to go. There's always a lot of different sizings. Let's assume he has, for example, ace queen suited here. As you see, everything has it's pretty even divided here. So checking is with a third of the time the biggest part, but all the other parts are really close here. Of course, we could take away just one of the bet sizes to make it a bit clearer, as there's not that big of a difference here. But as you see, all throughout the different combinations, it's pretty even. The only thing, for example, would be kings that he should be checking almost 100% of the time. As you see a little bit, sometimes he does it with if he has the king of diamond, he does bet sometimes, but for example, all the non-diamond, including kings, will be checked 100% of the time. Same goes for the queens pretty much, but as you see, every ace is just every of these 5 options is valuable. So everything of this is used pretty much. The only thing would be the 2 pair aces here that would go slightly towards the bigger sizing here. As we see, he goes for this 1/3 pot bet, and now it's our turn what to call. We always, of course, look at our specific hand, which is the 10-9 of clubs. GTO tells us, as you see, to only call it less than half the time, but to raise it mostly. As you see, 8 in the middle, so with his bet size of roughly a third, we should pretty much raise what's in the pot currently. That should be the case a bit more often, because the thing is, player 2, so UTG, does have a lot of things that are not ace high, as you see. Those are the ace high combinations, but there's also all the king X stuff, queen X stuff a lot, and premium pocket pairs that are of course lower than the aces, so tens, jacks, queens, kings. Also smaller pairs than the eights, so sixes, fives he would also have in that range, and therefore raising makes a lot of sense because we will then get folds from all these kinds of hands here. Of course, with all the aces, if you see we go for the raise, player 2 will call all his aces. So he should only fold his really weak aces, and as he opened UTG, he will probably not have that as often, as we already have in the range that those kinds of aces will only be raised like half of the time, for example. But other than that, he will call all his aces, and in this case I slightly leant towards him having more aces, so we just go for the call, which is, as you see, also fine, as said, slightly half of the time, especially with our hand. Like, we never fold, of course, because we have the backdoor. Funny enough, with the hearts and the diamonds 10 of 9, we will fold like a fifth of the time here as well, even though we have second pair, but because his range is pretty capped towards over to like better pairs and already ace top pairs, 10-9 is kind of hard to continue if we don't have the equity of the backdoor flush draw, which we have with our hand. And as you might already know, we decided to just call here. Now the turn brings the 7 of diamonds. I check it again, and let's have a look at the range of our opponent. So, seeing the checks, as you see, there's already a lot of checks. Even the good ace X here will be checked. Only aces is a clear bet here. Ace 6, which picks up an open-ender. Even ace 10, where you have top pair plus an open-ender, you see, should be checked a vast majority of the time. And of course all the kings, queens, king, queen suited and stuff like that is just 100% of the time a check. He does continue betting with hands that we have in this case, so it will be hard for him to have these. But if he has stuff like, as you see, Jack 9, Jack 10, which is now the straight, but also Jack 9, 10, 9, so that's blocking the nut straight so far. He should continue, of course, all the sets as well. But yeah, as you see, a lot of the ace X should not continue anymore. Let's see what he does. He does continue for 50% of the pot. Now we have that option here, and yeah, as you see, according to GTO, that's definitely not a good bet size. As you see, only 1% of the hands. As you see, we marked it in violet. You see this bet sizing pretty much only here. That's like probably the biggest part, with 9% when you have the ace 10 of diamonds. That's the only part where this really happens, so only 1% of the time he should go for that bet sizing, which, however, he does. And then what we would defend. And now you see the 10-9 of clubs. It's also funny enough, like when you now have the 10-9 of hearts and the 10-9 of spades, because you have that open-ender, you just call 100% of the time. With that sizing, that's exactly what we did. However, the river unfortunately does not bring the straight for us, and we face another bet sizing. So we have that check again, and let's see what his sizing is. Again, kind of odd sizing, goes for less than half the pot here, which is pretty much roughly this. It's a bit lower, but that's like the default sizes we have, and this is the closest one to it. This would be now, he is here roughly 42%, and this one would be exactly 50, so not that big of a difference. But as you see, the small sizes will almost never be used. And now let's see what ace X he would even consider. And as you see, he would actually check back all the ace X here, or according to GTO he should. But however, I think this was a $7.50 or an $11 one. Yeah, as you see, people are far from GTO. And now the thing is then, are there even any real bluffs in that situation for him? So that was what we were thinking about, or what I was thinking about. If it makes sense, have a 10 on my own is probably not the best, because that blocks some stuff. Is he could have maybe, let's say, king 10, queen 10, for example, where he blocks the nuts straight. He could have a flush draw. We don't block that, but then again, would he go for 3 streets on an ace-high board that favors our big blind, our small blind range pretty good, I'd say. So not sure about that. However, he goes for the bet, and now we see what we would call, we have pretty much only the 2-pair combinations, our better ace-x we have in that range, that because we will not 3-bet them pre-flop, and then as you see, all of our ace-x, pretty much all the 2 pairs again here as you see, and the better ace-x, and we fold all the weak ace-x. However, 10-9 of clubs is a fold in 97% of the time. So yeah, luckily we did that exactly. I think still pretty interesting because of the sizings, as you see, really far off GTO, and that's what I was then also giving him a note for, because the sizings were a bit off. Because if you think about, like, here going for half the size, like I think like the flop size I like pretty much, even though there's the flush draw out there. So either he feels really comfortable with this pot, with his flop, so that he has like a set of 9, set of aces, a set of 8s, or set of aces. Because when he bets pretty small into 2 players with just the pair of aces, I'm not sure, because he gives us a really good price. So he could have like ace queen, ace king, ace jack of diamonds as well, where he then thinks, yeah, I have a pretty good hand, and it's really hard for the opponents to have draws. So I rather just bet small to keep them in the hand. But then also, the thing is, you never know what your opponent is capable of doing. So he could be just really not sure what to do and thinks, oh, I have an ace, I have to bet. Maybe then, like, the flop check raise would have helped a lot, because it would be really hard for him to continue when you have like a random ace here, and he doesn't feel comfortable, especially when the turn brings like a pretty good action card, as Jack 10 gets there. If I have like 9-7, 8-7, which I could be check raising as well, that gets a lot of draws. Maybe even if I have Queen Jack or let's say Queen 10 or something like that, I'm adding like another end of the straight, so I would have an open ender with that, and I could continue a lot here. And therefore, as I said, like sizing wise, it's a bit weird, especially when mostly if they have like a set, the river sizing will be really big, so they try to like feed you with little sizings and then go for a huge sizing on the river. The only thing might be because he doesn't have the nuts on the river if he has a set, that therefore he's a little bit afraid. However, what we can have a look at is, you see, what we would raise. So we would only pretty much raise pocket 8s, which is the the 5th nuts here, 6 nuts actually, 6 nuts, then the nuts, and all of our ace, not even all the time, but most of the time, our 2-pair combinations. So yeah, I was hoping maybe to find somewhat yeah, maybe in some way like a check raise bluff here. And as you see, like 10-9 could be a thing, but then we have like the worst kind of 10-9, as we have the one with the backdoor flush draw, and we're blocking that. So as you see, that shouldn't almost never be bluff jammed here. However, the other 2 10-9 combinations we can still have would tend to go for that 1/10 of the time. And again, yeah, I think pretty interesting sizing wise. And you see, even though now you know what the best way to go for it would be, like if you're in his situation, you see the flop sizing is well done. So that's, according to the sizings, is definitely fine. But if you then see what, let me calculate that again. And as you see now, also interesting that you will now see that it takes some time, that he, for example, here should go for the really small sizing instead of the bigger one. So he went for half the pot. I mean, it's not that far off here in the end. Okay, because I took the check line. Okay, never mind. But I will wait. Let me. He went for this, and then, as you see, like he should here now we're right again. He should go for the bigger sizing of 75%, so the smaller one here, which is pretty much the default when you go for 2 or 3 streets that you go for like a third on the flop, when it's, even though it's rather wet flop, because of the ranges, it's fine to go with a smaller sizing as we crush, or as UTG crushes the ranges, crushes the board with his range pretty much here. And then when the turn brings some action, but not a lot of draws get in there, just pretty much Jack 10. We will not have 10-6 in that situation, and 5-6 only in diamonds probably, which you would continue with, but other than that, we just have Jack 10, which gets there as a draw, as you see, to go for that bigger sizing in the end. And then finally, let's calculate that one again, where you see that he should also just actually go for the jam all the time when he goes like this. So that would be like the perfect line, at least according to the percentages. Of course, you can see there's some deviations, so he should be checking actually most of the time here. But if he continues, then that would be the way to go. And therefore, I think like in this case, he didn't pick the perfect EV line, so the most plus EV line. That would actually, when we just think about the percentages, would be betting the flop, check back the turn with most of his range, and then as you see, let's calculate that again. Also, pretty much checking, but when then just go for a small river bet. Always, of course, depends on the sizings here. But yeah, I think pretty interesting one again. Also, a lot of times people might just overthink this too much and then not get away from it, as on the river, if you call twice and you think, oh, why not just call the river again? But yeah, you have to think about how many bluffs does he really have here, and there's not just too many bluffs. On the other hand, as I said, like better players or more regular playing players would probably check behind the turn often, but a lot of players, if they have the pair of aces, the top pair, they are not thinking too much about it if they go for value or not, if it makes sense, what the opponent's range might be. They just see I have top pair and think they have the best hand. Because if I have now like a set of 9s here, I would probably get a lot of his chips. I would probably get the full, like definitely the full stack here. If I just check jam the turn, if I have pocket 9s, or if I have the Jack 10, I can probably get a lot of money here. But yeah, in this case, didn't work out, and I'm just happy I played the best way. Only I could change that I will check raise the flop. However, I think he is leaning towards a lot of ace-x in that situation. So I think calling here is the better play. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. If you have any questions about this hand, or about the Hold'em Manager, or about simple post flop, let me know. I'm more than happy to answer them. Other than that, good luck at the tables as always, guys. Have a good day and see you in the next video. Ciao.